Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
We finally come to the day. We've been anticipating this, the reveal for the August We Will Rock You event, RAWK being an acronym for Random Acts of WikiTree Kindness. I'm Betsy Co, and over here, Sandy Talk. We're so happy that three of our Rockies were able to join us today. We have Malk Rollins from England, and Christian Roy from Canada, and
Doug from Oregon.
Yes, okay. I wasn't sure what state you were in. Okay, thanks, Sandy. So
these are kind of odd Appalachian. That's not an Appalachian.
I'm sure all will become clear.
Yeah, it will.
So we may have, I was expecting maybe one more person. So, another person may pop on the screen, but let's get to it. Sandy, when we get to your portion, you just tell me to move forward and, I'll be your screen operator. Sound good?
That sounds perfect. I just love seeing everybody here. And, it's kind of cool. We've got a boys club here today, the three gentlemen here. So this will be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So this is the third We Will Rock You event. We've been running these every other month. So we had one in March, we had one in June. And the nomination process is happening right now for the October We Will Rock You event. So there's a G2G post up. You can nominate, anyone's welcome to nominate another WikiTreer. And then all those names go in a hat, and we randomly select 5 people who then get their branches worked on, just like in a regular WikiTree challenge where we're trying to increase their CC7.
And I think it probably should be repeated again. These are random. They really, truly are. I'm there when Betsy does the pulling the rabbit out of the hat type thing, the numbers. It really, really is random. So when people go and nominate you on G2G, you never know who we're going to get. And that's the fun part.
Right. Absolutely. So our 5 lucky WikiTreers for August were Alicia Donovan and Malk, who's here with us, Doug Leeper, Christian Roy, and Kelly Richard. So we're going to, after I show you sort of the broad picture of what we accomplished with the numbers, then we'll look at each of these 5 and their branches and what we were able to do for them. So by the numbers, everybody likes stats. So here are some numbers. We have their starting numbers and ending numbers and the final increase in CC7. So as a group, we were just south of 2,800 connections that we were able to add for them.
Wow.
Yeah. This was sort of a little bit of a tough group because, as you'll see, some of Alicia and Kelly and Christian were already starting very high, So, and we'll see with the graphics later on. They had a lot already filled in. So, but we were able to add something for everyone. And we gave some badges to people. Malk got over 1,000. And Doug and Christian, we both were able to get you over 2,000. So I think those just appear automatically on your profile. You should be seeing those soon.
It's there.
We had 56 rockers.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I know. I think that's good for August when everybody's on holiday and schedules are irregular, but and there's people are already signing up for October. All right, so we're ready to start with Alicia's lines. This time around, I did both a fan chart and the 6 degrees app. except for Alicia, where I had some privacy hurdles and I couldn't work it out with her quickly enough. So, well, Alicia, we just have the fan chart. So this is the after result. So you can see that her lines are very, very nicely filled in. Got some marriage information for quite a few. And we had two interesting finds for Alicia. Both were on her father's side. Then this first one is admittedly, have to warn you, it's sad. This was a first cousin 3 times removed, named Helen Margaret Dougherty, and maiden name Ruge. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but Helen was born and lived much of her life in Nebraska. She was a school teacher. The morning of March 31st, 1952, she did not arrive to school where she was a teacher. And they found her car abandoned by a river nearby in the area. And nobody had any idea what had happened. They hypothesized, was it suicide? Was it abduction? Had she eloped? And they went through the water as thoroughly as they could, didn't find anything. And then a little over 2 years later, they did find her body in the river. Still, they don't know what the circumstances were.
That's what I was going to ask. Was the mystery ever resolved? But
yeah, no. So I suppose it could be at some point, but. And then another cousin on Alicia's paternal side. I just find this backdrop delightful.
I do too.
So here's why. I actually knew before I went to the profile, and so then when I saw the profile, I had a good chuckle. So Clara Amelia Tigden, also from the Ruge family. So she was listed in the 1948 Norfolk, Nebraska City Directory as an egg breaker, which you can see down there. It's towards the bottom. Her name's lightly highlighted. Yeah, she worked for Frank Pilley and Sons, and so I had no idea this was a thing. And since we're all about learning things on WikiTree, there's job description from careerplanner.com. Of all, just basically, doing the thing where you're separating the yolk and the whites and, getting rid of the shells. There was also a smelling element to, sure you didn't get any rotten eggs in there. Which, if that was your specialization, you might be designated as an egg smeller.
And you know what's funny? It says this career planner, career testing since 1997. So you can be an egg breaker.
Yep. It's still an option. Those tests that kids take, in high school. What's your ideal career? I can't imagine coming up with this answer. And then I thought I would also show the connection path, because it's one of those, oftentimes it's, broken up by marriage, but it's a straight shot here from Clara to Alicia. So now over to you, Sandy.
So Doug's lines were very interesting, and I will say that I know that a lot of people have worked on his line for RAWK, and my apologies if I don't call you out and recognize you by name, but I will tell you this was the only person selected from the Appalachia project that I lead, and we nominated Doug. He was one of the ones that one of our members nominated. If we had known how challenging that one side of his tree is, we maybe would have started a little bit early. Now, Doug tells us that there are 10,000 Italians that needed added to his tree.
What?
We in Appalachia don't know how to do that. So you can tell that one side of his band chart is very well filled out. And it's just really kind of funny, because Doug I met him this year on WikiTree, and we ran into each other with some very, very old family lines in Virginia, and complicated lines too, my dad. And I remember us going away for the weekend, and I said, just go into our Discord and just tell him Sandy sent you, and tell me you like biscuits too. And he did, didn't you, Doug?
I did.
That's exactly what we did. And
It's like the magic password.
yes, it's like our speakeasy. But we love Doug because he also brings tremendous amount of DNA experience with us. Now, Doug works on his tree constantly, and on the other site, it's complete and it's full. And he had some living relatives that he trusted a few of us with his tree on the other site to help us increase his CC7. And as we kind of talk about your line, Doug was really kind of interesting, and Kathy's here. And I love that Kathy's here because Kathy was rocked last time. And Kathy did not want to know anything about her tree at all. She didn't want any hints. She didn't want to know what we were working on. She didn't want to know brick wall, nothing. I mean, she had a whole blackout. She went to every project and said, don't tell me anything. Well, Doug, as we kind of talked before, Doug started working on a CC7 because he thought it was CC8 that we did. So we had to tell him, we had to kind of like, no, Doug, you can't do that. And then we got stuck really bad because on Family Search, so many of his lines in any direction, not just one family line direct, but in any direction, was so incredibly wrong that it looked fraudulent and maybe a little bit of vandalism going through. So a group of us in the Appalachia Project, when I say a group, it was probably 10 of us, literally had to tear apart Family Search one by one. And that took about 2 weeks for us to clear up lines. And the reason why it's funny is we had to go to Doug. We had to go to Doug and say, are you related to these? Are you sure your ancestry tree is correct? Because we're wanting to do this with Family Search to bring the sources over. And the other reason why I throw Kathy's here is for those of you that don't participate in helping in RAWK, or maybe you do but don't know, Betsy sets up one day where everybody comes together and you can pop in and out of Zoom to do a little bit of research if you have a little questions. So, we like to jump in. I like to jump in and say, I need help from somebody in England. And usually there's somebody in Zoom to do that. Kathy was doing the late shift one night and it was pretty quiet. So she came into our project and said, hey, can some of you come talk to me and help me out? Guess who the first person was that went into the Zoom? Doug. Which was great because all of us came in and we got to not only know more about Doug and his lines, because sometimes when you're just talking in Discord, you chat via text, you don't know. So we got to know more about his lines, which was really great. And what he wanted specifically, we're here right now. There are about, I don't know, Kathy, how many? A dozen of us?
Yeah.
In there. And we're like, what do you want us to work on right now? We've got about 2 weeks more. And that was great. I mean, it's such a different experience to go to a person and say, we're stuck, help us. But he knows his family lines. He just doesn't have them in WikiTree completely. Okay. So Doug, are you ready for some interesting finds?
I am.
Okay, Betsy, let's move to the next one.
All right. Ta-da!
Okay, so Doug, that's where you started and that's where you're at. Just
Oh my gosh.
31 days. This was crazy. This was really impressive. You went from 947 to 2450. And I will tell you that there's a lot of Appalachians that helped as well, that we tried so hard to get you to 2,500. We thought we had it, and we just don't know the Italian lines that well, those 10,000 Italians had. But that was pretty impressive. Okay, so Betsy, we'll move to the next one. We'll talk about interesting finds. And thank you, Doug, for sharing and being so upfront and sharing your pictures. So this is a timeline of Doug. And as many of you know, I'm a Marine family as well. My husband's second generation Marine, and Doug is a Marine. So we hit it off instantly, and we understand some of the chatter between ourselves. But I wanted to thank you, Doug, again for sharing the pictures and the progression. So that's your baby picture, and that's you in your dress blues, and then today, current, right?
Pretty close current.
Okay. So we've got two themes that went through Doug's line besides the fraudulent on family search. Two very, very, very distinct themes. You had pioneers, and it was fascinating to me, since you were in the military, that you have a large amount of military ancestors.
Okay.
And to start off just real quick, so Morgan Shockley was a participant in the Oklahoma land run in 1893. And that was now what is considered Oklahoma, but it was some Cherokee land at the time. It was the fourth and largest land run. And if you've seen, there's a movie out there. I can't remember the name. I won't tell you the actors, but they're pretty popular. This is the land run that you've seen in the movies where it opens at noon and everybody rushes to go claim their land. So this is your great uncle was a participant in that. And then going down to Linda. Linda actually passed away not too long ago, but this was an extremely interesting find. So she was a pioneer in a different way. She was the first blind operator, one of them, for AT&T in the state of Utah. And she worked at that job for 27 years of service, knew 3 languages, completely blind. Wow. And she never gave up trying to find a cure for her blindness. And sadly, it never happened, but she always had hope.
Was she born blind?
She was born blind, I believe. And then now for your military ancestors, so in kind of your going in, I have to throw an Appalachian one in there. So Samuel Neff and his son were actually charged with murder over fishing rights on the Susquehanna River. It was a pretty big deal. If you're familiar with lobster pots, crab pots, we were talking about that, salmon catching, things like that, where they collect them. It's kind of a fish collector. They had those, and somebody decided they wanted to interfere with it. There was a murder over that. And I'll let you read the profile, because one of the Appalachians did a really good job of describing the whole event and what happened. And then Private John Shockley, this will probably interest you the most, Doug. He was a member of the 19th Indiana, but it was part of the Iron Brigade. Some people call it the Black Hat Brigade because of what they wear. And this was during the Civil War. And I just have a note. So it was noted for its strong discipline and its unique hat, but it was also the brigade that had the most lost members during the war. And a lot of people probably do not hear about the Iron Brigade or the Black Hat Brigade. It is a core Union membership, and they fought very, very hard. They were kind of like the Marines of the time, even though I know there were Marines at the time, but it was kind of like the Marines at the time. They had their own way about themselves. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then you did have an ancestor that died of pneumonia in World War I. Now, the very last thing I want to share with you, and this was really touching to me, and I know it was touching to another member. So Dee in the Appalachia Project. Dee and Aaron and Tabor and Shelley and Susan and Margaret really, really worked hard. Those ladies really put in a tremendous amount of work on your line. Dee found that her father was at the same base right during, I guess, the beginning of World War II as your grandfather. Wow. And they were in similar type of MOSs. So the chances that they met or knew each other or walked by each other or had messed together, there's a really good chance that they came across each other. And I think, to me, you always hear me say, like on bingo and things, the power of WikiTree. This is truly the power of WikiTree. We can show you we've got a lot of profiles on WikiTree for you and how you connect to famous people. But to connect to somebody else's family member that's very dear to them, that was kind of special to see. And so those were really the best of your Padlets, I guess you say. But you really have pioneers in your family. They did go from Virginia. They went to the Midwest. They went to Oklahoma. They went to Oregon. And they're your military ancestors. So it was fun. It was really fun working on your line. It's fun to get to know people as you work on their line as well. And I think that's Doug's last slide.
Yes, it is. Wow. Very, very cool stuff. Yeah. And you leapfrogged over 2 badges. I mean, you got, but when all was said and done, you got your 1,000 and your 2,000.
Yeah.
So pretty neat.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I sit here and work for a week and get like 12 people added to WikiTree or whatever. On a good night, maybe I'll get 10 once in a while. Just that would have took me years of work to even get that close, and that's if I did no other genealogy but bringing stuff to WikiTree.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and now we come to Christian. Who introduced himself to me in email as 99.99999 French Canadian.
I love that.
Also known as, I'm not going to say it. So how do you pronounce that, Christian? Pure
Laine.
Pure laine, which means
It's
real wool?
yeah. It's an expression. It's sometimes derogatory also from English Canadian. They think the Pure Laine are thinking about themselves first because we were the first here beside the Indian. But it's I wear it proudly.
Yeah, so just to make sure I understand the definition correctly, Pure Laine means that your ancestors go back to the very first settlers from France.
Yes, you can. Yeah, the very first settler here in Canada, and also I cannot find one line that came to this continent after the conquest by the British. All my ancestors came from France or a few from Switzerland or Belgium, but they all came before 1760. So it makes me, I have a few Indian lines, very few, very early. And besides that, we always have those exceptions that with the D name, you have an ancestor who's the Riel d'Irlande. He was coming from Ireland, but he was a Huguenot from France. And the other one, Miville Le Suisse, was, originally from Switzerland, but it was all like that, Every one of them, almost every one of them are French.
Right. And I think you had said something to me in an email that you were right now concentrating a little bit more on your mother's line.
Yes.
And that there had been some migration to the United States.
But this is not at all special. From in the 19th century, it is said that at least 1 million persons from Quebec migrated to the States. It was a third of our population. It's huge. Some of them came back, but some family never moved from the state after. And if you go in New England, you find all those names that are obviously French of origin, and it's always funny when I visit in the States and people come to me and ask me how to pronounce their name. It happened.
And would it have originally been with an I, R-O-I?
Yes, a few of them were writing it with an I.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I brought up the migration specifically because we had one. Oh, well, before I get to that, as you can see, we did make some impact, but you were already very well filled in. But we got this filled in and these little bits filled in. Oh, I wonder what is up here.
Mhm.
That's
interesting.
yeah.
I have a brick wall who's almost impossible to break.
Yes.
And,
Your third great grandfather, right?
something like that. Yes, on my father's side,
Mhm.
who is what they call in French an enfant naturel. He was born out of wedlock, so
Right.
his name doesn't show in any register, official register at the time,
Mhm.
church register, I mean. So I think I found is baptism, but as there's no family name, no,
Mhm.
I'm not really sure it's him. So, but
Yes.
this one is for DNA research, I guess.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But yeah, DNA would be one way to
One
get.
other thing I might interesting to add is
Yeah.
I barely touch my father's cousins, first cousin.
Uh-huh.
And as long as I can say, there are about 150 of them.
Mhm. It's a lot.
So, yeah, it's gonna add up quite a few when I do that.
I mean, first cousins, that'll definitely be within 7 degrees for sure.
Well, of course, it's third degree or something like that.
Yeah.
So if I go with them and their wives and their children, and my father did a research in 1997, he's written to all his cousins to ask them, give me what you know, your children, I want to know everything, and he compiled that. I have all that, and I have yet to add that to
Right.
WikiTree at one point.
Right.
So it's going to be something.
Well, that's for a few rainy afternoons.
You can say that.
Well, even though you really had a very healthy, rosy CC7, we were able to add almost 400 for you, and this is one of the rockers who worked on your lines, Patrick Stacy. And he said he had fun going through the microfilms of Catholic parish records to look for your ancestors. Okay. He also shared that I noticed that there were several people in both Christian and his wife's family who migrated back and forth between Quebec and the Northeast states in the U.S. Not being Canadian, I wasn't aware of the prevalence of the back and forth migration and had assumed it was mainly a one-way migration. Seeing that with Christian's relatives helped substantiate a mystery we had with my wife's French-Canadian relatives, as we had found U.S. Census records for several families in Canada after they had reportedly immigrated to the U.S. So far, it appears many moved to the U.S. to work various jobs with the industrial mills, and they settled into French-speaking communities. So I thought this was really nice because here he was helping you, and then he learned some things that helped him break a wall for his wife.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my whole adventure with rocking started exactly that way. I was bored working on menial branches that were so easy that at one point on a G2G caught my eye, someone who has a problem with the French line. And I just decided to give it a try.
Yeah.
And I helped people quite a bit.
Yeah.
I spent a full month working on that family. It was so enticing. So we were discovering things, and there were a few other people working with me, and we managed to break quite a few walls on that branch, and it was fun. And after that, I discovered that the guy nominated me because of that, and here I am. But it was not the first time I was working on American connection between American family and Canadian family, and I think it might become a specialty of mine in the future because my position makes me in the best spot to know about the two culture, being able to read and write in English and
Right.
knowing so much about the Canadian culture
Mhm.
that it helps me. I'm not bothered when the name is not misspelled. I know our names are always misspelled. You cannot rely on the spelling of a name. It doesn't mean anything. You have to find around. And
Yeah. It sounds like the seed for a new project, maybe, you know, drawing from
maybe
American
something.
researchers.
But you know, retracing the million Quebecers that migrated to the state might be quite a challenge.
Well, that's what we're all here for, right? A challenge. Yeah, and you know, I also want to say that with everybody, all five of you, you know, during the reveal, I mean, we can't show you everything, and we really hope that that you will be finding little surprises on the profiles in your branches for the coming months. You know, that maybe, you know, would have certainly escaped my notice, but you know, when you're going through, you'll see, oh, hey, someone's been on this profile and done something. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristen. Now we come to Malk. And I feel, I had these backwards. So Malk's lines are from Wales and England, specifically Dorset, Somerset, Gloucestershire, Cornwall. That's your wife's side, right? Cornwall.
It is. Yeah.
Yes. Suffolk, Bedfordshire, and London. So Malk, would you want to talk a little bit about your lines?
Well, my biggest problem is when I started with WikiTree, and even today on Ancestry, I went in a straight line. I never branched out with the families. So many of my profiles, some 200 I still haven't gone back to, show many children that haven't got profiles. The names of the children are on with the parents, but they're not profiled. So that would lead to probably thousands to add. So I just went straight back and didn't blink at almost and not looking either side. And my ancestry tree looks exactly the same.
I can vouch, yes, the ancestry tree is the same.
I just became blinkered and went straight for it.
Well, sometimes that's, you just got to dive in.
Well, that's right.
The only thing for it. Well, now let's see what we did for you. Okay, we got you over the 1,000 mark.
That's incredible. I'm really grateful for that. That is huge.
Yep. And if you would like, if anyone would like me to send you this side-by-side comparison, I can easily email that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
It's because basically it's not a special app that you haven't heard of yet. It's just Greg Clark's CC 6 Degrees app, and I just do version 1 and version 2, and I screenshot them and put an arrow in between. That's how I did that. So, all right. So we have 2 finds for you, Malk, and let's see. I think this was. I can't remember. I think I remember which WikiTreer worked on this, but we have a quote from them coming up. William Stephen Arthur, and he went by Art, apparently, Brookman, lived 1878 to 1952. He's 6 degrees from you. And he was, I guess, owned a tavern and also dealt in coal. So he was written up in the police blotter for stealing a quantity of coal around age 35. This was 1911. And it's interesting because it gives a physical description, 5'9" or 5'10", slight build, thin features, thin features, hair, and slight mustache, brown. As well as what he was, I guess this was in lieu of a mugshot, exactly what he was wearing. And he is license of a beer house, has also carried on business as a coal merchant, and used to working and driving of motor cars. May endeavor to leave the country.
Oh.
And he did. He did. He went. So, it was Jutta Beer. That's right. And so Art was born in Bath, and we see him in the censuses, living with his parents. And then by 1901, he was married to someone named Matilda Bartlett. And then when we should have seen him in 1911, instead we see this report. We don't know what happened to Matilda. However, according to his biography on Find a Grave, Art was in Canada by 1928 with a second wife and a son, Arthur Jr. And the family started out in Ontario, eventually made their way west to Victoria, British Columbia. And there, Art opened a store. He had this lifelong dream to be an entrepreneur, according to his son. The store was called the Craigflower Bridge Store. And his business enterprise was run first by him and later his son, and then eventually passed on to very dear family friends. So the business was around for 85 years. So there seems like there's a lot more to discover here.
Yeah.
Interesting chap.
That is.
Yeah. So here's Jutta said she worked only on your branches. Go Welsh Dragons. And she said it took me off to areas my family are not in. So I learned some new stuff. And the Brookman story really captured me.
Great. Thank you, Jutta.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And then you have some cricket players in your CC7 web.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. So the one that is more closely linked to you, Malk, is Frank Stanley Lee. And I guess that's just because of his descendants. But he also had, he was the youngest of three brothers, and all three brothers played first-class cricket. And
Great.
you'll see that if you look, I know it's tiny, but Frank is considered a notable connection because he has a Wikipedia page.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So this was Donna Bauman who discovered this trio. Let's see, Harry, who was the oldest, his career as an athlete and in military service was documented in his autobiography, available on Amazon. I found it. It looks like a good read. It's called 40 Years of English Cricket with Excursions to India and South Africa.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it is.
So Donna said she also worked only on your lines. And she said, I never quite knew where I would end up. I spent a lot of time in England records, bumped into an Italian immigrant, and even learned about early cricket leagues in Middlesex and Somerset, England.
Great. At least it's Somerset.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I thought that bit about the cricket playing brothers was fantastic. Yeah.
I'm staggered by that. I really am. That's impressive.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, now we come to Kelly, who's our last Rocky. And Kelly started out with a very nice CC7 of 2063. But we were still able to add 257 for her. Her lines are primarily English and Irish. So you can see, well, you have to look, but definitely, like, we filled that in.
Definitely filled in some.
Yeah, over here. Still a few little stubborn spots. But yeah, all this got filled in. So great work. This was a great one. Sally Kimball was the rocker who discovered Charles Teeters. So Kelly is 5 degrees from this interesting fellow through the marriage of one of her ancestors to Charles' son, Jack. Charles came to the West as a young man, and he was a rancher in Browns Hole country. I didn't know about this, but Browns Hole is at the intersection of Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, sort of that little tri-state area. And in the earlier years when Charles was ranching there, the ranchers lived side by side with infamous outlaws such as Butch Cassidy. So Charles is said to have had many stories about the dance that the ranchers and the outlaws had with one another. And he was quoted as saying, "You just accepted them as they came and avoided trouble. As long as you minded your own business, they didn't bother you." And then I'd like to acknowledge, and I think there are more than just Sally, but I noticed Sally has rocked every month we've had the event. So, and she said, "Rocking allows for the opportunity to explore different geographical areas and different backgrounds than the lines closer to me are for." In August, many of the people I looked at were early arrivals in the American West in a Three Corners area that included parts of Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah. Also, they or their parents were immigrants from Scotland. Still looking for a Romance of the Old West tale in my direct family tree. But with all this research experience you've gained, Sally, just keep looking. So, finally, I thought it would be fun. You just never know if there's something unexpected with how the five of you were connected. So I ran everybody's connections. Both for the relationship and the degree of connection. So closest, let's see, in terms of degrees, we had a tie, Doug to Alicia and Doug to Kelly, both 15 degrees. And then in terms of the relation, Alicia to Christian, eighth cousin, second time, 2 times removed. So nobody too close, but you never know.
Still more profiles to add, probably.
That's right.
Yep.
We could narrow this down, I bet. So if you are watching and you didn't get to rock this time around, you have 2 more chances, October and December. So nominations are right now. And if you just go into G2G and search RAWK, you'll find it. And that is what we have for you today.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. I think everybody did a great job. And I think it's really special of you guys to want to be rocked as well, because some people would be, I want to take my time, or I like a source in a particular way on a profile or a particular thing. So I think it's really special that you guys volunteered and said, yes, please help me out, because that kind of lets us, like was said, learn a different part of the world and learn more about you.
Yeah. And you can see in the nomination post on G2G that the people who nominated you and others are so passionate and
really
excited.
Yeah.
So you got some friends on the tree.
Surprises me.
So why would that be?
I don't know.
That's crazy.
I don't know why. I mean, Malk does so much for the England project. He really does. He was my trailblazer when I was going through the orphan trail. And I learned so much for him. And just being able to nominate him for being RAWK and then being chosen, I was so excited for him, because I knew his CC7 was roughly about what mine was when I was RAWKed. And I said, we can do this over, get him over 1,000 like me and get that badge. And I had a death in the family, so I wasn't able to do much. So I felt bad about that, but I'm so happy that others just stepped up for not only on Malk, but for the other 4 people that were being RAWKed, and just, blew it up with the amount of people that were added. Like Sandy said, there were a few of them in the Appalachia Project that spent a couple of weeks cleaning up Family Search while RAWK was going on in order to add the profiles in WikiTree.
And I think that's a really good point because for those that are helping out, you do research. It's not just so for you guys that have these profiles added to your tree. I think everybody that was helping out researched and didn't just blindly say, okay, you're all related to, Charlemagne or George Washington or whoever it might be. We did research and try to make sure that we did it right. So we did right by you guys, I should say. So Betsy, I got a question for you.
Yes.
When will you know who is going to be rocked next?
That is a good question. Thank you very much for putting the post up for nominations, right?
Right.
Yeah. Let me see if I can quickly pull up. I can't remember what the deadline is for nominating. Do you have it in front of you, Sandy?
Let me see. I got the rockers and the nominate. Let's see the nominated. Eek.
Should say it.
There we go. I do. Let's see. And it says the nomination period will end September 27th, which is great, right before the Source-a-thon.
Wow. That doesn't leave me a lot of time to confirm everybody, but it's, yep, okay. Well, then I think in that case, we're going to draw those names on the 28th. So, whoever has been selected will be hearing from me by private message on Thursday, the 28th.
So if you can have anybody to nominate,
yep,
then do it. So gentlemen, it was pretty easy process. You were nominated and you accepted, right?
Thank you. And thank you for all your hard work in putting this together every 2 months. Betsy, especially you. I know you put a lot of work into it. She does.
She really does.
You're very welcome.
And unfortunately for the October one, I've got 2 orphan trail members nominated. So I hope they both don't get through. Sounds terrible, but
well, it's hard to say. I mean, in the August pool, it was a smaller number of nominations, and so of course then everybody had a better chance because we were still picking 5.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Who knows? But we'll find out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a really fun conversation, and enjoy the discoveries in your branches.
Thank you, Rach, and a big thank you to you all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
Bye.
see you around.